Okay, we going?
We're live.
All right. I wanted to start this one off with the show and tell with this guy. It's my Gibson LG-1. I found this actually here at the Guitar Center locally about 10 years ago. I used to play a mahogany Martin, a 000 or 0015, something like that. Smaller body guitar. I like a lot of finger picking. And so smaller body guitars tend to lend themselves to more that type of thing versus a strummer like a dreadnought. This is kind of like an in-between. It's got a little bit more weight to it. It's a little thicker, but it's still smaller. So if you know me, you know that I'm not like a large guy. So I like a guitar that I can manage. And this one's classic. This is from the 60s. I'm not exactly sure what year. But these used to be student guitars, funny enough. And they were like cheap. They weren't super like pricey way back when they used to make them. And a lot of the students used to get these and play them. And now they're like highly sought after, partially because manufacturing's gone down the tubes and every part is just junk anymore. And they just don't make things like they used to. But this guy, yeah, I picked him up. So I saw it on the wall. It's got a crack right here in the body and next to the bridge. It's actually elevating a little bit, which probably isn't good. And it's been like that since I've owned it. It doesn't seem to be getting any worse. If it does, I'm sure there's a luthier that can probably fix me up. But yeah, so, and then I did the thing that shall not ever be done, which is drill a hole. It's okay. I've seen it done before, but it hurt because these things are, what is this? A 60-year-old guitar by this point. And I'm drilling a hole to be able to put the 1/4-inch cable in. I normally just, right now we got a secondary mic. We call it the crotch mic. Under the table. It's hidden, so you can't see it, but you can hear it. But I figured I'd play not one of my songs, but one of my favorite songs that I've been playing recently. It's by John Prine. We lost him over the last couple years, and that's the way the world goes round. I know a guy who's got a lot to lose. He's a pretty nice fella. He's kind of confused. He's got muscles in his head. They never been used. Thinks he owns half of this town. He starts drinking heavy, gets a big red nose, and he beats his old lady with a rubber hose, and he takes her out to dinner, buys her new clothes. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. There's a 1/2 inch of water. You think you're gonna drown. That's the way that the world goes round. I was sitting in the bathtub, counting my toes, when the radiator broke and the water all froze. I got stuck in the ice without any clothes, naked as the eyes of a clown. And I was crying ice cubes, hoping I'd croak when the sun came through the window. The ice all broke. I stood up and laughed, 'cause I thought it was a joke. That's the way that the world goes round. That's the way that the world goes round. You're up one day, the next you're down. There's a 1/2 inch of water. You think you're gonna drown. That's the way that the world goes round. Something like that. Man, this thing's so cool. Has that creaky vibe. Just creaks a little. Sounds old. Anyways, that's that. I got a funny story real quick. when I first met Skip, my wife's known him for a period of time. Her dad was friends with him. But I never knew him. And I was kind of impressed. I got to meet Skip, He's a local pastor, big church, Calvary about Albuquerque. And anyway, so I was at like a house party. And we were downstairs playing music. And for whatever reason, I was learning a John Prine song. And it wasn't this one. It was a different one. And it was, you should actually pull it up. I think it's, I forget what it's called. It's a funny song. It's like, it's between a guy and a girl. And they're talking about how, actually, let me see. What was it? It was like, she don't like her eggs all runny. She thinks crossing legs is funny. Gets it on like the Easter bunny. She's my baby, I'm her honey. Never gonna let her go. So I'm singing this song. And then the second verse, this is why you should play it, not me. It's kind of like, it's not explicit, it's raunchy. It's not innocently raunchy, it's just kind of raunchy. And are you reading the lyrics or did you find it?
Is it called In Spite of Ourselves?
In Spite of Ourselves. Yeah. Never gonna let her go. So I'm singing this, we're downstairs singing, trading songs.
She thinks crossing her legs is funny. She looks down.
And for whatever reason, and I get to that point of the verse where I was like, what am I doing? Because, he's a pastor. I'm like, oh no. And he's like, go ahead, sing it.
Never gonna let her.
This next verse. And so I sing it.
He ain't got laid in a month of Sundays. Caught him once and he was sniffing my undies. He ain't too sharp, but he gets things done. Drinks his beer like it's oxygen. He's my baby, and
Great
I'm his
musical
son.
song here,
Never
and it's really
gonna
funny.
let him go.
But I sang that in front of Skip, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like sweating like I probably am right now. Just like, what am I doing? It was so uncomfortable. But that was the song I was learning.
Did he say anything? Or you just kind of let it go?
No, he's cool. He's a down-to-earth guy. But I just felt so uncomfortable. I was like, I just embarrassed myself so much. But anyway, let's start the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Here I am, burning my Palo Santo. It's the show tradition. I think we got a fun show today. I think I'm just going to riff on a few things I've been thinking about. Specifically, I wanted to kind of share my entrepreneurial journey and maybe encourage a couple people out there who are wanting to be self-employed or, I don't know, some insight into that. Before we do get into the show though, like 99, I was looking at the stats, it was like 99% of the people that watch the show or listen to the show are not subscribed to the show. It would help us out a ton. Would you please subscribe to the show, be it on Apple Podcasts, be it on Spotify, or YouTube. Those are the three main ones. You get notified. We do a show every Friday. We put a new show out. We also put clips out and stuff like that. So for those that can't listen to the entire show. But yeah, let's do it. And Mother's Day's coming up in a few days by the time this episode goes up. So happy Mother's Day to you mothers out there. I think our audience is like 60-40 women. At least, I don't know if that's true. I think I saw that on Spotify, which maybe it's Spotify and Apple is 60-40, but...
Oh, my mic wasn't on. What's up, ladies?
What's up, ladies? And then on YouTube, it's more masculine because I guess it's just the platforms. One thing I've been thinking about, question to you, audience. Does someone's personal views detract from their art? Say a musician, me, I'm an artist, I suppose. Or does it detract, or does it contribute to why you support their art? I was thinking about this because, well, of course, I've had to think about it a lot, venturing out into public with my views life. There are artists out there that I love because of their views personally. And then there's artists whose art I love that I have a really hard time appreciating because I know their views on certain issues. One of them is Justin Vernon, Bon Iver. I mean, objectively excellent art, incredible music. He's inspired, an entire generation of music, different types of music. You've listened before, right? Well, I found out like a year or 2 years ago, he was became kind of an activist. Same with another guy I listened to, and Daniel Romano. I'm dropping names, but they don't share my views, and it conflicts me because on one hand, I'm like, man, they're objectively great artists. Their product stands for itself. So I'm wondering, is it fair for me to judge their art according to their personal views? And then I kind of go down that line of thinking. Do you have a view on this?
I feel like there is this weird coincidence where all the best art comes from the left. Maybe it's because they're risk takers in a way that the right isn't. And so I often find myself at odds with artists that I admire.
Yeah. The question is, why is that? And I think you're right. I think it's because Christians tend to be real square about things, very, high and tight, very strict with their art. It's funny because it relates to like liberal and conservative. To explore in art, you got to have an adventurous spirit, and it does seem like people that don't share our personal values or my personal values do that. Or I'm sorry, they do explore. And they don't necessarily have an anchor, so they kind of venture off into abstraction, and then they lose their minds, many of them. But where's that balance of that? Because I find myself in a weird position. Yeah, as an artist, in the creative sphere, but having very Christian conservative values. I'm in this weird place where I'm kind of like fighting to be able to explore, to ask questions, to not be edgy for the sake of being edgy, but to be able to push boundaries, which requires a degree of liberal mentality. That's not to say like satanic mentality, but that is to say, let's check this out. Let's explore. Let's adventure a little bit here. And then you get on the other end, which I can never bring myself to bash a faithful Christian artist if they're genuine, even if it's kind of like, because it tends to be very bubbled in. I'm speaking in vague generalities, vast generalities here, but I think the listener, I think you guys can relate to what I'm saying. Is it's sad because the world owns art, the arena of art, and I don't think that should be. And what's funny is I actually think that a lot of artists obey the natural law, even if they don't think it. If they were just pure, obviously we're all familiar with some like abstract paintings and stuff like that. I don't think there's any objective anchor force of nature to that, which is why it's just noise. doesn't have any real depth or meaning. But those artists who may not be Christian, but are you listen to certain albums or you know, something like that, and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. I don't think that's detached from, say, the laws of nature. Because at the root of it, it's an experimentation like jazz music, for example. I know a lot of people don't like jazz, but jazz is really awesome because it's not just pure abstraction. You can't just jump in and play with a jazz trio, you know, or quartet or whatever. You got to know your theory. You got to know it all. And music theory is like anchored. It's like the law of music. And so in a sense, it's like I'm exploring right now. This is an interesting thing to explore for me. But like in jazz, like I could never get up there and play with a jazz musician because I don't know my scales and my modes and all these different things. And they do, but they break all the rules. So it's like an orderly, designed chaos. But it's not fully chaos. It's how do I break the rules and still qualify it as orderly. And so it's like, how can I discover a new color? That's kind of what jazz is to me. I like jazz. I think trying to think of a music that I don't understand, a genre maybe. Controversial take. I don't like a lot of modern rap. So this actually goes in line with that topic, actually. You might disagree with me on this. So jump in and give me your 2 cents. But I'm going to sound like a square, but that's okay. When I came to Jesus, I couldn't listen to, I think a lot of people may experience this. I couldn't listen to like secular music anymore because it felt like I was being subverted in my soul, in my spirit. Because a lot of the lyrics, even though if I don't like listen to the lyrics, and I mostly just listen to music and vibe with music. For the most part, I don't really listen to or pay attention to the lyrics. But when I first came to the faith, I was like, when I came to it seriously, I can't listen to this stuff in good faith. That was my conscience, and I think others can faithfully listen. And I do from time to time, but there's certain genres, for example, that I can't. That's defined by these things, glorification of money and power and sex and all these different things. And I think that kind of goes in that line of that theory of like, can you listen to or appreciate art even if it's celebrating things that are in contradiction to your values? And I really struggle with that. I think you can. I don't want to be super rigid about it. But I can be sometimes. So I've got to kind of like push myself to be a little bit more flexible. You know, because we can move ourselves to an island. That's not where we're supposed to be in the world, engage the world, meet the world where it's at, but not compromise. It's kind of confusing. You like hip hop? You like modern rap? He's wearing a Tupac shirt.
I am wearing a Tupac shirt. So
I can appreciate Tupac.
my wife is the one that like educated me on 90s hip hop, and so I had to get the t-shirt.
You know what's funny is maybe I have a different view on 90s because I was much more of an innocent person. I was a kid, you know. But I love that genre or that era of rap. I'll listen to that stuff, you know, even 90s R&B and stuff. But you do listen back and you're like, whoa, this is bad.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of funny. I listen to this old school hip hop and then all of a sudden I'm very aware of who I'm listening with or next to, you know. It's
kind of like what my intro song, right? Where I'm like, here I am, I'm playing a John Prine song that's talking about sniffing undies and all this stuff. And then I feel so embarrassed.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. It's pretty rough, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's as raunchy as some of those rap songs. I'm a hypocrite for sure.
I think kind of back to your point on jazz, I had this thought before when you were talking about why, you know, what is this balance between following the rules and breaking them? it's almost like there is an art form in and of itself of defining what is sacred and then going after what's not to see what sticks. And I think
It's exploration.
yeah, like modern hip hop obviously is just burning down everything. A lot of the music that I'm drawn to, though, like it might be controversial to me, but the songwriter, I can feel them like wandering and wading through these big ideas, and they're trying to figure it out. And to me, I respect that a lot more than just kind of attacking, my way of life.
Sure. And I can actually genuinely listen to 90s hip hop. There's a history. There's a whole lore about it. There's a whole thing about it, right? I mean, the projects, getting up and trying to do something, make a change for yourself and your community. Like there's an underlying good message, even if like they're like, yeah, I'm selling drugs. I don't know if that's a good message, but there's like this hunger and this like human spirit that's good about it.
Yeah,
And then at some
there's
point,
an underdog story that you kind of latch onto a little bit.
yeah, it does seem though at some point that kind of devolved into just pure objectifying women, pursuing all that is evil and glorifying it. And I got out of that. And even in that era, and so I'm kind of viewing it in like two different minds, because when I was a kid, I wasn't viewing it with any set of values. I was just listening to it for its musical sense and the way it made you feel, which is kind of hypnotizing. And, it's not to say that, I don't think it had a negative effect on me, but sometimes like you listen to certain music and it changes your attitude. And we were talking about it with Donovan, how it can, you're having a bad day, you listen to a sad song, and it gets worse, or it validates those feelings, and now you soak in that state versus, getting out of it or something. There's also a positive aspect to it, right? When you're feeling sad and you can listen to a song and feel comforted because someone else has gone through it and wrote a song about it, validating your feelings. That's a big purpose of art there. I'm trying to like decipher how to discern as an artist what qualifies as acceptable and what doesn't. And I tend to err on the side of liberty. I just can never settle in a position of rigid legalism, even when it's just, and this sounds contrary to the case I've been building, but when I kind of conclude my mind on it, it's more of like, yeah, I don't like it. But how do you deny someone's art as being valid, even if it's flawed? Because we're all flawed. And that's where you get like, okay, well, I'm going to qualify everything. I'm going to sanitize everything. And I'm not on board with that. And that's why I have to be liberal-minded about it. And I'm not speaking this in political terms, but literally liberal, like with liberty. I couldn't exist. There's this like movement. I listened to this podcast. This is a little bit off, but I think it's related. By some really cool Christian men trying to assert masculinity. And this guy asserted that you cannot be a Christian man and have long hair. Here I am, brother. And he like disputed that Jesus had long hair or Samson or, all these different things. Because there are biblical figures that, of course, they had long hair. Men. But then he brings up Paul and all these different things. And he put that idea out there on Twitter, and he got ratioed for it. For those who don't know, ratioed just means that it wasn't a popular tweet. That's not to say he wasn't right. I disagree with him. But he got ratioed, meaning that the public did not agree with his point of view. But I think he was being very rigid And like, no, you can't. You have to fit into this mold. You got to look exactly like this. Otherwise you don't qualify. You're not it. And that's legalism. And I think that's where art comes in. Is like, oh no, I can. I'm going to have longer hair now. Not in rebellion to him or to God, but it's in rebellion to like this legalistic external holiness that's being asserted. It's inward, buddy. I was actually kind of offended by that. I was like, why am I offended by that? This guy's essentially saying, hey, got to cut your hair, man. Have short hair. And he was trying to like, how short? Well, it can't be below your shoulders. Something like that, but it's like relative, you know? It's like, and there are so many different cultures that represent themselves in different ways. And I think that's the relation of art and culture, and there is no one size fits all. Expression, human expression. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with that, but something to explore.
I think that's an interesting idea, though. Like, even when we're in creative endeavors, I know, at least for myself, I can get locked into a grid. Like, I've done it a certain way or I've followed a certain process for like 10 years. And someone will kind of challenge that. And it's like, okay, why do I hold this idea in such high esteem? And for me, it's like, oh, well, I've navigated away from risk by doing this. And so can I sacrifice that thing in exploration of something great? You know, like, and measuring the risk of loss versus like the opportunity that's before me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's like you just get stale.
Staleness is, and it's boring, and there's no color there. It's just gray. And I listened to another podcast. I listen to a lot of shows. And I caught this, though I probably wouldn't have caught it unless I'd been like kind of chewing on these things. But it was Get Off My Lawn with Gavin McInnes. And the guy is not sanitized whatsoever. And that's why I love listening to him, because what you see is what you get. There's no euphemisms. He's not, polishing anything. And his co-host, Ryan, awesome dude, he was, Gavin accused him. He's like, why are you sanitizing? Because Ryan was sanitizing his words. And I caught that. I was like, that's interesting. It's obviously seemingly a conscious thought for him to not sanitize. I'd love to ask him his mentality on that. But as a Christian guy that grew up in the church, that is the predominant way to be, is to sanitize your speech and I get it. It's like, I need to be above reproach. I need to be a good role model. I have this rule, and I think I'm going to stick to it. But I have this rule for my kids. You can cuss so long as you don't mean it. And I think that properly represents my attitude with it. I don't so much care about the words. I do care that they don't disrespect their mother or their dad or others. But I like cuss with my friends as a total joke. And it's actually kind of a parody of cussing oftentimes, because they know I don't really cuss. But like, I'll say a word or something as an absurdity, and it's funny. And the underlying heart of it, so long as it's within a trusted company, is understood. It's not malicious. It's not a curse. It's not a negative thing. And I feel that way. I think it relates, like Christians tend to sanitize a lot of things and Christianize, and it's an interesting thing to think about, because be holy, therefore, as I am holy, Jesus says. Be set apart. Be set apart. Don't be like the world. But what's interesting is there was a group of people, the Pharisees, who agreed with that idea, but only outwardly. And they got accused of being whitewashed tombs, legalists, by Jesus. Paul kind of said the same thing. It's not a Jew that is one outward, but one that is one inward. The circumcision of the heart, not of the flesh. All that to say, I think that informs my mentality of the cussing thing, that it's an inward thing. And so I think that artists, Christian artists, ought to be able to explore, so long as it's not a heart to deteriorate. I think that's the big thing, right? In today's culture, everything's like deconstructionism. We need to explore. We need to, tear down all of these strongholds, these things that have been taught throughout church history for the last thousands of years, and we need to build over again, start all over, or something, because we know better. We know more now than they knew 1,000 years ago. And the arrogance of that, dude, they know more than God. But the idea is that it's not exploration, it's destruction. It's taking down the standard, not upholding it or not trying to understand it. And I think that's kind of what you were talking about, how jazz kind of does that. It's like, hey, what is this standard? How do I play with that? How do I interact with that? How can I play around it? All while having a sophisticated sense of obedience, if that makes sense. I think that's why I can appreciate jazz, because it takes a level of dedication, devotion, obedience to certain laws of it, and suspending others, not destroying for the sake of it. I'm getting off into some abstractions here, but I hope I didn't lose everybody.
But that's jazz, baby.
That's jazz. I was just riffing, guys. I was just riffing in C minor, in the second mode. I don't have any idea. We talked about this before, and I think it relates to like artists, or not just artists, but like even businesses. Kind of the idea of, like I said, I've had to wrestle with this idea of like coming out and just being me on a camera, and it's been intimidating because I know it's going public, and I know there's going to be malicious actors out there at some point, maybe, who won't like what I say. I understand that. And it might rub off onto my business. That was what I kind of explored in the first episode, the introduction episode. But it kind of comes down to this idea is like, I think a lot of artists especially, but business owners, think they can go throughout life being neutral. Now, I used to think this. I used to think that I could just be a private person with private views. And maybe in a different society you could. And be okay. And keep my business as a valueless void, neutral to all things. And I think I'm discovering that that's not real. And that at some level, there is a set of values that every individual has, explicit or not. And therefore, the people that occupy businesses or that create art, those things are not neutral either. And so might as well just come out right and say it. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. But I think that's what you saw with like the whole Bud Light thing, right? Or you see certain things that they, at some point, be it a marketing scheme or whatever they're trying to do, the people that fill the vessel of a business or whatever it is, those values will come to the surface. And so I kind of just makes me think that neutrality is not real. Like you cannot maintain a neutral stance in society. That at some point you got to just be open about it. It's like, what are your values? So that's been the big battle for me, is just reconciling my personal values with my business. And if that makes me lose business, that makes sense. If it helps me gain business, that also makes sense. But I think where the trouble gets in there is when you surprise people. When you represent something publicly that other people were under the impression of something else. It suggests deception or something like that. And I'm just like, I'm not about it. I think, I feel the need to just be out and about it. It's kind of like I'm anti-euphemism. I'm anti like the doublespeak type of thing, because it's all shrouded in hiding, which is ultimately just cowardice. It's like, why not just say it and let people deal with it? It's like, on one hand, I don't regret singing that song in front of Skip, because I'm treating him like a normal, every other human being. And if you're an adult, I think you can handle the truth, even if you can't handle it. You got to handle it. We shouldn't censor the truth or hide behind our business. I get it. Not everybody's ready for that or whatever, but there's certain people that I see that are out and about with their personal views or whatever. And I just think, I so respect it. Yeah. I never thought that I would I don't know, be in this position. Necessarily. I talked about it before, but when I first became a musician, I wanted to be I was listening to Bob Dylan a lot, and I wanted to be a protest singer. I wanted to sing songs that mattered, that defined a generation. My little early young 20s self.
How did these values from protest music and like this drive of art inform you as a business owner or creator?
So I have like this. So like my dad, he won't take the same road home twice. He's very like he's his own man, just kind of going. And I take that. There's a funny story of us. We were setting up. It was like the rehearsal at our wedding, and my dad and I were supposed to be working and setting things up. I haven't told this story before, right? And I think my dad or I saw like, oh, Dad, look, there's a squirrel or there's a rabbit or something. And we're like looking, when we get distracted and we get carried away looking off for this like rabbit or whatever. And everybody's like, hey guys, come on. We're setting things up. But I thought that was a really telling moment of how some of my dad kind of rubbed off on me. We're just easygoing, happy-go-lucky type of guy, right? That's kind of how he is. But on the same token, when it turns into business, I don't have, I think because I don't do the same day every day, the structure and the rigidness of business oftentimes is so restrictive. It's so stale that I needs to be shaken up, but that can prevent me from being productive or consistent. Even in my business, I'm always changing up my marketing campaigns, or like I'll set up a structure or a system and then I break the system because I get bored with it like that. Always trying to innovate, always trying to do something new. So that makes it difficult for being productive, to answer your question.
I'm interested in the idea of like leveraging those personality traits though, because I think as creatives, a lot of people struggle with that very thing.
Structure?
Like, structure and routine. Even the little story about your dad driving a different way home every day. I've never heard of someone else doing that, but I have to do that or I feel like I'm losing my sanity.
Drive home different?
I feel like if I feel just like I'm a slave to like
A robot.
of like, the schedule that's around me, which is such a weird thing. So I'm like, you know what, screw it. Today I'm going to turn left and see what's over here. And it's like reclaiming a little bit of that liberty that like opens me up to try new things, you know? And so I'm interested in the idea of like, maybe those are features, not flaws.
I think so. I think this is where maybe this conversation goes is both have values. You know, having liberty, flexibility, a spirit of exploration, adventure, whatever. And then also knowing the rules, respecting the rules, following the rules. That's where I am right now, right? I'm coming more from a liberty mindset of like, I'm my own master, I'm my own, which isn't true. I mean, Christ is Lord, but in business or whatever it is, you know, and I'm starting to like really appreciate people who have submitted themselves to a system for a long period of time or been disciplined. Because what's that saying? It's like true freedom is found in discipline. And like budgeting, right? Here's the example. If you don't budget properly, you don't, set aside certain money and you just spend every check as soon as you get it, are you really free? Or if you disciplined yourself and exercised restraint, self-control, and responsibility by putting away certain money or, paying off debt or, saving or investing or whatever it is, that would be more of the structured mindset, the military mindset. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, I never knew that. I didn't come from that type of culture or family. And so I look at that and I'm not in regret toward the culture it came from, actually deep appreciation for it. But I'm also like, how do I incorporate that while not just switching boats? My wife and I are kind of like this. We have this relationship where I tend to be more spontaneous, and she's a little bit more like a creature of habit, structured. She wants to sit in the same place every day at church or every Sunday or whatever. We had in a fight about it one time because like let's sit over here. And she was like devastated. It really wrecked her, and I was like, and so we kind of have to like. It's really a miracle that we get along so well because we are quite different. But that's kind of that's the beauty of a relationship, is that you find that balance and that middle ground. And so I'm just kind of like trying to figure that out too. How do we, appreciate, say in art as Christians, the methods, the madness, the flexibility, the exploration, while still holding on to the anchor, while still holding on to truth. Can we do it? That's what I'm trying to do, I guess. Especially with this podcast. It's funny because I keep reverting back. It's like I can't help but talk about my faith and how I think in regards to all this stuff. Because I don't want to be rigid. I don't want to be a square. I don't want to be not just because I don't want to be. If it was the righteous way to do it, I'd be I'm a square. Call me a square, make fun of me, whatever. But I do think that there's real merit and value in being able to be flexible, and the spirit of exploration, of being a pioneer, of God was a creator. How do we be the best creators? And I think of the Renaissance. A lot of the greatest art through human history has been made by the hands of Christian men. So what did they know? Because it wasn't just like abstract blobs on a canvas. I think that's the arrogance we can find ourselves in this culture, is that because our technology is so much more advanced, we have 4K cameras, we have, crazy stuff, these microphones, that we're better than all the other generations. But I think because of the comforts, because of all of these other things, we're babies in maturity of thought. Like, I imagine your average man 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever, would be so much more educated 100 years ago in America, so much more educated than we are today. And we go through more school than they ever did, But I think we can have this sort of arrogance. And so in my mind, I'm like, it kind of goes into that whole preserving traditional values. What did they know? How can I piggyback off of them? Not literally, but figuratively stand on their shoulders. That's what I'm after. On a different topic. Yeah, so I wanted to share about my experience getting into business, because it hasn't been an easy. It hasn't lent myself, or my circumstances in life haven't necessarily lent themselves to me becoming a business owner, an entrepreneurial minded guy. Both my parents were working class. They worked in. My dad worked for the government for a period of time. Mom worked in foods. Traded time for money. That's what you do. I didn't know anything different. I didn't know you could start a business. I didn't know you can create a product or a service out of nothing and sell it. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could do anything other than work for an hourly rate. And I never thought I would do anything other than that. But I think just by accident, I fell into it, because music. I started doing like band stuff. And when you're in a band, or when you're trying to, make it as a band, you follow everybody else. You're looking around. What are they doing? Oh, they're selling merch. Oh, they got shirts. Oh, that's cool. They got CDs. They got different things they're selling. CDs. It's the last time you listened to a CD. But selling merch. And so when you become a musician or a band guy or whatever, you become a business owner in a sense. I never got a business license during that era. I'm not saying that. Don't come after me. But you become a business owner that way. And so I kind of became a business owner. I started making my own merch, my own CD cases, and I'd burn my own discs. I'd have my friends help me print kind of like cheap stickers or whatever on top of the CDs. And then I would use craft paper or whatever, and I'd package them like little presents or whatever. That was probably those are the first products I ever made, DIY products. I was way into that back then. This was, when was this? It was probably 15 years ago. I released a Christmas series of songs, the Christmas songs. And then I created merch, I spray painted merch. But that forced me to get skills, to increase the graphic design, ask questions. And so I had a band, and then I worked with a band, played in a band, Poema, with some good friends. And I observed them. They had the entrepreneurial spirit, and I learned a lot from them. They would tour, and I got to do a little bit of that with them. And they would grind. And I would observe them, like, dang, that's awesome. Like even when we'd be at the house or whatever, just watching a movie, they'd be knitting a hat to sell for merch. or, doing a graphic design or something. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. They're really being productive with their time. And we ended up moving to Nashville. I moved to Nashville with them. And I remember I knew we met a guy when we toured through Nashville. His name is Mick Ornelas. Cool guy. He works with a band called the Katinas. I think he still works with them. Really awesome guy. But this guy grew up and he was always an entrepreneur. I believe he came from an entrepreneurial family, or his dad was, or something like that. So I'd pick his brain and be like, what's this about? Because he never had a job. He told me, I've never had a job. And I knew that I couldn't keep a job. I'd worked at Guitar Center for a period of time. I worked at Starbucks. And it was always like a 1.5 timeline. To a 1.5, I acquired the skill, got bored, thought, what am I doing? I get depressed. I'm just trading my time for money. I need to move on to something else. It's like the natural time clock in me saying, do something else. Keep challenging yourself. Keep moving. I think everybody else feels that same feeling. And I think that's that feeling of sadness when you're working at a job. It's like a dead end. You're just like, what am I doing? I'm just trading my time for money. Sometimes you got to do that. There's periods in time in your life where you got to just buckle down and do that. There's no other opportunity. Or you got to save up to figure out how am I going to, venture out into a new project or whatever. But I'd get to that point in my jobs about 1.5 years in and be like, I learned it. Not perfectly. And then I'd slack off. I got fired from Starbucks for being late. Nearly fired from Guitar Center. It's kind of like school. I just kind of think I got bored. And anyways, so I met this guy, Mick. And Mick was like, hey, yeah, you want to know about this? Read this book. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Everybody knows about it. If you have never heard about it, you got to get the book, read the book. It changed my life. It changed the way I thought about value or money. Because I'd always, like I said previously, thought of money as I just trade my time for money. I just go get a job, work an hourly rate. And you'd be doing good if you just up that hourly rate by a certain percentage. But then it blew my mind. He told me, he's like, yeah, you can create an asset. Something that you do one time that can make, in theory, an infinite amount of money. Say like a book. You write a book, create a video, a movie, right? You make it one time, you spend that amount of time, one time, and that can have exponential return. And I thought, hey, that's interesting. Because it's not, your money's not necessarily doesn't have to necessarily be tied to time. And so it made me think of things in different ways. Products, music, CDs are like that, right? Of course, it's 1-to-1 or streaming music. But you make an album, you spend the time, you record one song, say, and that one song can net you a return of billions of dollars for some people. You're Michael Jackson or something.
If you're a hip hop artist.
If you're a hip hop artist selling debauchery and sin to the whole world. I'm kind of kidding. But man, that changed my life. And then so I kept entertaining those ideas, those thoughts. And I was working at Table 3 in Nashville at a restaurant, working minimum wage pretty much. And then I was like, I'm going to start selling guitar lessons online. So I did that. I want to say that was probably the first time I've ever brought in independent money. And that helped. But it wasn't until I did photos and video that I was like, okay, I need to start figuring out how to invoice. And then I started getting into it. Like, oh, wow, I can do this. I remember I shot a music video for my friend in a band called Trenton. He never released the video. I was using an entry-level camera at like 720p. And the video was kind of cool. We scripted it. It was fine. I wouldn't be cringing at it. I don't think he ever posted it. But dude, you should pull this up. Actually, it'd be fun. Poema, LA. There was one video I shot for Poema. That was the band I moved to Nashville with. that I was like, we started getting real experimental, really kind of weird, abstract. But it was cool. It was playing with framing, playing with textures, gravity, all kinds of different things.
What's the song called?
Meet You in LA? Does that sound right? Or was
Forgot You in LA, maybe?
Maybe. But this is all shot with a TLM. No, that's a microphone. It was a T4i. It's like a Canon T4i. It was an entry level camera, but I paid like $300 or something for it. And I sold the first music video to this guy Trenton for like $1,000. I was like, oh, I made it. I could $1,000. Not that that's a little amount of money, but the amount of work that went into that, the amount of hours that went into that. Yeah, this is it. I shot this all in one day. We had no plan. That was their station wagon. This is at their apartment complex when they lived in Nashville. We just go around the complex looking for funny things. And I think it's like kind of cool. I don't know. Everything was slowed down like a percentage, like 30% or something. So we had to slow the song down so that it looked a little like dreary. Everything had like a slow zoom.
This is the first music video you did?
Not the first.
This looks clean.
I probably would have done something different with coloring, but like there's a few shots in here that I'm like, oh, that's really, I'm proud of that. Just playing with weird things, right? Like she's like way up in the tree and Shaylin's like right in the foreground. This is awesome. This is they're like behind the bushes. You can only see like top of their heads. I think the video really complimented the song. But the reason I brought this up is because I was just experimenting and figuring it out. I had no idea what I was doing. I was looking at a bunch of different videos, a bunch of stuff on Vimeo, getting ideas, getting weird. And when we posted this, Aaron Marsh of Copeland saw it and he commented, he's like, nice video. And I was like, whoa, because at the time I was like super big fan. It's kind of abstract, it's kind of different. But there was other ones that were more serious that I'd done. And not that this wasn't serious. This was the vibe. See what I mean? It's just like a cone that was just laying there. Got a shadow in the shot.
Were they on board for like the fun stuff?
Yeah.
Or do you have to
Oh, they were
them?
all about it. No. They were cool. Super flexible. And this wasn't the first one I did. This is where it gets kind of fun. The swimming pool was dead. No one was there. Might have been cold. I don't know. Like that one's cool. Cool shot. I don't know who I was watching or what was influencing my mindset, but it was just like exploration. Like, what could we do? No money, no budget, cheap camera. How many views does this have? Oh, shoot, we're going to get
100 views? 100,000 views. 100 views.
Would I get a copyright strike for this?
Hopefully not.
I don't think they were signed. I don't know if they're a big label that would. Regardless, that would be stupid because this is my video.
Because you shot it?
Yeah. How many views?
100,000.
Okay. Wow. So that's that. So yeah, I started shooting videos, photos. I don't know. Oh, I shot the cover for the Cardboard Kids album, Echo Boomer. That was cool. I played in that band. Didn't really get paid for that. Didn't get paid for much of my band stuff. It was kind of rare. Musicians don't get paid enough, man. When I, oh, that was why I got out of it. So that's what happened is I started making music, spent, $10,000 to record 5 songs. It's a lot of money. I did do a Kickstarter for that, so I had a lot of help with that, of course. But then you do the whole marketing campaign, you do shows, you do the whole thing. And the big bummer with that one, this is why I got so discouraged and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm just getting married too. I had just gotten married. This is 2015. So I released my 5-song EP. You should actually pull one up. What is this song? Just Chad Barela. I think Tony Gambino shot a video of me.
You want the video or the song?
Do the video. You can pull it up. But it was a 5-song EP we did. Chad Barela, self-titled, whatever. And the cover's pretty cool, actually. You see my hair. It's pretty awesome. Super goofy.
Broken Compass, is that it?
Broken Compass, yeah, that's it. Shot by edited by Brandon Harwell, shot by Tony Gambino and his buddy, I forget his name. I have funny hair here too. It's just starting to grow it out. And funny enough, if you guys saw the Legend of Little Willie episode, it was this. We were shooting this video when the climax of that whole episode happened. So I paid $10,000, get 5 songs recorded, and then 2015 Apple Music launches. Free streaming for 3 months. You sign up for a trial. So I was like, oh, so I'm not going to be able to make any sales because at the time it was like just transitioning over to streaming mainly. Like people were still selling album sales, downloads.
You look so young.
I do. Yeah, I was freshly married right there. 2015. So yeah, I was super discouraged. Do the album release show. Can't sell the album. Nobody's doing CDs. What are you going to do? How do you make money? You got to be got to work really, really hard. It can be done. But man, I just started making jewelry. And that was like, whoa. That was a big eye opener for me because it was like the amount of investment and return on investment was just night and day difference. I could not sell any music. What do you sell? Like events, I guess. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your songs. You have to like really build an audience. It's hard. I so commend people, especially still, that are just going for it because it's a hard business to make money in if you're not like playing big shows, a part of a label, whatever, that whole ecosystem. As an independent artist, it's so hard to make it. But yeah, that was kind of my entrance into entrepreneurship. But yeah, and that's when I started, right around then. 2015 is when I took it real serious, went full-time jewelry. I'd already been doing it for a couple of years. And here we are, doing podcasting. We'll see if we ever get a return on this. I mostly don't really, I don't know. We'll get there. That's pretty much all I have. Hope that was fun. Exploring. Explorbuquerqueing. Did you ever do those?
Explorbuquerqueing?
It was actually a thing that some kid coined that term.
What was it?
Back in the day, the Instagram community, they used to make terms like that, right? Where they go, people that were like big into Instagram early on would go and hiking and find different spots to take photos. And one person coined the term Explorbuquerque. Just tried to combine Explore Albuquerque. And we thought it was kind of a funny thing. But did you ever do that? Did you ever go explore and do the photo thing?
No, I think the closest thing to that me and my friends were into was geocaching. Did you ever do that?
Mm-mm.
Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
So geocaching was really popular probably like 10 years ago. It was this app that you would get, and the map would pull up like these hidden tokens, like these little hidden like Easter eggs all around the city. that other geocachers had left, and you would have to use clues to find them. And then you find it, and it's like this. It's like whatever. It's at like Tingley Beach, and there's like a rock that's fake, and you pull like this little vial out, and there's like all these names of people that have found it before you. You like leave your name and date, and then hide it back where it was, and
It's like an Easter egg hunt.
yeah, it would eat up a lot of time back in the day.
It's pretty
Teenagers
fun.
with nothing to do and driver's licenses.
Do you ever play that game that reminds me, teenagers with nothing to do? In high school, we didn't have anything to do here in Albuquerque. Did you ever play that game? So you drive around, you try to get your headlights on a person. You have like one car that's hunting people, and there's like 10 people just running and trying to go from point A to point B without getting caught.
Oh, I've heard of this.
And so we did that a few times, but we started the school at night, and we'd have to make it to so-and-so's house, a couple miles away, and no cars at the time. On foot. So you're like hopping fences, you're going into people's backyards.
I miss those days.
Oh, that was fun.
Getting into trouble, hiding places you shouldn't be.
Very fun. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. Don't forget, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and happy Mother's Day. Okay. Love you. Bye.